Hey, it's Luke here. Welcome back to the Transcending Thought Channel and podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about how to overcome resistance and to find surrender. I'm going to show you now how to surrender, to end your suffering, raise your vibration, and find peace. So to begin working from surrender, the first thing you have to do is to realize what you are doing. So if you are not at peace, if you are suffering, if you are in pain, you are not surrendered, you are resisting, you are in resistance. I often say resistance feels like that tight, restricted energy in your chest. It's almost like a lump of energy, dense energy. If you feel it kind of here in your chest. So that's the kind of feeling of it, and you hear it in your mind as complaining, as judging, as criticizing. I don't want my life like this. I want it like this, is the pattern of the resistance pattern. It's how it sounds like. I don't want my life like this. I want it like this. I don't want this much money. I want this much money. I don't want this house. I want this house. I don't want to look like this. I want to look like this. I don't want to feel like this. I want to feel like this. And ultimately, it's when you are out of alignment with your present moment. You are viewing the present moment as an enemy, as an obstacle, as something to get away from. That's resistance. It's out of alignment with, being out of alignment with the present moment. So you can probably hear there, the path to surrender is reversing that pattern and aligning yourself fully with the present moment, which means being one with it, merging with it, coming into it, being there for it, being the space for your present moment, for your now. So I want you to right now, just look to your left and take in what you see. Just look and take in what you see. And now look to your right and look at what you see. And now just look around you, take in your surroundings, your present moment. Look at what you see, just take in what you're looking at. And just notice, what is the energy you are holding towards what you're seeing? Is it negative? Or is it loving, accepting? What's the energy that you are having towards what you see, what you experience? It doesn't take too much attention or too much effort to observe mindfully the energy that you are holding towards your present moment. Ultimately, it's either you're resisting it, which simply means I don't want it to be this way, I hate it, I despise it, I'm fighting with it, I want it to look some other way, or all of those patterns end, which is the acceptance and the surrender. Now, there may be something in you saying, how could I possibly accept what it is I'm looking at? And that may be unbelievably justified. The answer to that question always is, if your mind asks you the question, your mind says, how on earth could I surrender to this? It's awful. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough food. I don't like where I am right now. Or I'm in pain and it's justified, and your mind says that. The answer to the question of how on earth could I surrender to this is simply, I surrender because I don't wish to suffer. I don't want to suffer anymore. I want to feel at peace. I've had enough of suffering. Your mind, your egoic mind, it's not you saying that, it's your mind. Your egoic mind is saying, how on earth could I surrender to this? It's awful. And the reason it does that is because the mind believes I know what's best. I know better than life, the universe, that's been here for billions of years. I know what's best. I will never make a life like this. I will never treat anyone like this. I'm bigger than life. I'm bigger than God, says the mind. And that's what is creating a lot of suffering in your body. So the answer to the question of how could I possibly surrender to this, when your mind says that, your response is because I don't want to suffer anymore. And I can see the futility of fighting, of resisting things. It's not doing anything. You are angry at the world, which causes you to suffer, which lowers your vibrational state, your frequency that you're operating from, attracts more negative things to you, and does nothing else. Resistance, fighting with your present moment, believing you know what's best, lowers your vibrational frequency, makes you suffer, attracts more negative things to you, and does nothing else. When you realize that your resistance and fighting with life is not doing anything, it will begin to drop away on its own. The reason why your mind fights with life, fights with how things are, is because it believes, if I fight with things enough, I can manipulate the world to the way I want it to be. You have to remember that the energy you are living from now determines what your future will look like. Because the future is just an extension of the present moment. There's only the present moment, and it's constantly changing. And what materializes around you is dependent on the energy that you're in right now. And so, if you're trying to beat life to the way you want it to be, it will just fight with you right back. And you'll constantly be creating more chaos. You might even get the thing that you want. You might be working towards having money, for example, lots of money in a business. If you are in that state, most likely what you create will just attract more problems. You'll have more money in your bank account, but something else will pop up. Forms isn't the answer. Trying to manipulate your external reality to the way you want it to be in order to then feel peace is not the answer. Realizing who you are, which is the formless consciousness of the universe, which awakens through surrender, that's what we're here to do, to realize. It's to realize who you are. And if you can abide in this who you are realization, which is one with consciousness, one with the universal totality, one with being, the source of life, and you can abide in that realization, that's what the Buddha called the end of suffering. So what does that have to do with surrender? Resistance hardens your egoic false self. It keeps you trapped in form in the mind, and it restricts you. You become restricted. You become more dense, more heavy, more matter. Surrender opens you up. You become less matter. You become more spirit, more formless. The more surrendered you are, the less limitation you have on yourself. You feel more open, you feel more free, you feel less restricted. I often say when you're in surrender, when you're in resistance, matter forms, so the things around you and also the thought forms of your mind, your thinking patterns are like concrete. They are dense, they are heavy. And it's like, you have to chip away at it like a marble, like a concrete thing. It takes a lot of work and effort to change things when you're in resistance in the ego. When you're surrendered, when you're more open, when you are in touch with who you are, which is consciousness, awareness, formlessness, and you can sense yourself not as the egoic self, but as the one life, and you know that to be who you are, matter around you and also the thought forms of your mind, so form, becomes more like Play-Doh. It becomes more dough-like, it becomes more malleable. Your thoughts become more malleable, you can change them with more ease. And things around you just become more malleable, they become less real, more cushiony, rather than dense, if that makes sense. Surrender, as you open yourself up, as you realize who you are, you become less matter, more spirit, and things are more malleable. So if there's suffering in you, you are resisting something. You feel it as a heavy energy in your chest, most likely. Some may differ. Most people, I would say, feel it in the chest. It's a dense energy. I would always recommend you to bring your attention into that dense feeling, that energy, and just notice it. Don't look to your mind, don't think about it. Bring your attention directly into the chest. Observe that feeling and just notice how it's not doing anything. It's not going to bring you the things that you want, and it's not going to manipulate the world into your favor. It doesn't work that way. It's the error of the egoic mind. It's a delusion, believing that fighting with life will materialize a better life. It doesn't work that way. So look at your present moment right now, become conscious to your now, and metaphorically shake its hand, which means to say, okay, this is how things are. Nothing I can do about that. It already is. What is, is. The present moment is as it is. It's formed. It's already here. So I'm going to shake its hand, align myself with it, accept how things are. Which raises my vibrational frequency. I'm going to rest in that more peaceful state. Doing might not happen straight away. You may just be more comfortable, which is a good start. More peaceful, which is a good start. Just looking around, feeling more peaceful. You may not see change happen straight away. You have to have faith that your inner state will reflect itself outwardly. An inner change always reflects and initiates change on the outer level. Always. As you change within, you change without, whatever that looks like. If you don't know this, I used to work as a assistant psychologist, a kind of a counsellor in a hospital with children with physical health conditions. I'll probably talk about that a little bit more. That was my job for a long time, being a counsellor for young people with health conditions, children. And at first, when I had that job, it was incredibly stressful. So I got it probably just around my spiritual awakening. And it was incredibly stressful at first. It was just so much chaos, so much hard work. But I practiced surrender. And it was just unbelievable to look back now how that journey went, because at first it was incredibly stressful. A lot of it was admin work, and I was constantly sending out appointments, answering emails, and doing lots and lots and lots of work. It took up a lot of time. But as I practiced surrender, something really interesting happened, which is the same job that I had completely shifted towards an unbelievably quite simple and quite peaceful, relatively peaceful job, where all I would do, I don't know if this is interesting, but I set up a calendar booking system. So a lot of the stuff was taken up by admin. But as I was practicing surrender, and I just had this idea of setting up a calendar booking system, and it led to this. What I would do is the patients would book in an appointment, and I would just arrive at the hospital, sit in my chair. The appointments I'd automated it, so they'd already been booked in for me, and they would come in, I would help them, I would counsel them, and they would leave, and it became much more simple. So just give you an example there of how an external change can happen, not in probably the way you expect, but life becomes a bit more easier, because I just had that idea that came because I was in a surrendered state. My whole life changed after I started practicing surrender. So practice it. See things change. Watch your external reality begin to shift itself a little bit more easily as you practice being present and surrendering. So realizing the futility of resistance. In the body, it feels like a heavy, dense energy. In the mind, it sounds like complaining. If your mind is complaining, realize that complaining isn't doing anything. You can acknowledge something that's wrong, and you can plan to make a change without creating a story, a commentary in your mind of complaining. You just say, okay, this is how things are. I can see where there needs to be a change. I'm going to be present and I'm going to work on making a change. Do you hear the difference between projecting yourself into some future moment and struggling away from this moment, trying to get into that one? The now is your bubble. You're in a bubble of the now, and you never leave the bubble of the now. It's just changing. There's one moment that changes. It's not a succession of lots of moments. There's one moment. You never leave it, and it's changing. Forms come in and they leave. Forms come in and they leave. Your body comes in, it ages and it departs. But it's all happening in the one moment, which is the now. So I hope that's helpful. Practice surrender. As you do that, life will begin to work with you, through you, because ultimately there is no you and life. There is just life. There is no you and life. There is only life. Consciousness. Everything is consciousness, and you are the one consciousness, observing its creation through a limited mind. I'm going to talk about this, I think, in my next video on non-duality. But there is one light shining itself through different forms, observing its creation. But there's one light, and each body, each mind of human being and other life forms are the analogy I sometimes give when teaching non-duality, and I'll talk about this more next time, but I'll give it here. If you imagine a board, a wooden board with lots of pinholes in it, and there's a light shining through the pinholes. If you look from the other side of the board, the light is here, and you look from the other side, you will see seemingly separate individual lights shining through a board. But truthfully, you'll know if you look the other side, there's one light, and it's giving the illusion of separateness as it shines through the board. It's the same for this universe. All of these bodies are the pinholes. All of the forms, the eyes, the mind, the pinholes. And there's one light shining through all of these pinholes, giving the illusion of separateness. However, there is only one light, the light of consciousness. That's why Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." So I'll leave that one for there. Soak that in. I'll cover it next time. I hope this video has been helpful. Keep practicing surrender. Come back to these videos as much as you need to. Remember, I'm always open to one-on-one sessions, and I'll post the link below. But for now, I'll leave you. Take care, and I'll see you in a video very soon.